Good morning, boys and girls. We're here this morning to talk to you about College and Career Weekend. We're going to focus on colleges. I'm sure you've noticed by now that many of your teachers already have their doors decorated with the college that they attended, and we have lots of different places where our teachers have gone to school, and we'll talk about those maybe in the next couple of days. But I want to talk to you a little bit about where I went to school for my four-year degree, or what we would call an undergraduate degree. And I'm wearing a shirt here from Marshall University because that's where I graduated from and got my four-year degree, and it was in teaching. So I want to tell you a little bit about Marshall University just so you kind of know a little bit about it. So Marshall University is located in Huntington, West Virginia, and West Virginia is bounded by 5 different states. And so some of these states you may be familiar with, but it would be Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Kentucky. So West Huntington is right at the corner where Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky meet. And so I went to school with people from all 3 of those states, not just from the Huntington, West Virginia area, but people from Ohio and people from Kentucky as well, because it was very, very close. Well, Marshall is known for a lot of things, but one of the most famous events that happened at Marshall was a very tragic event. And when I was 9 years old, and I know a lot of you here are 9 years old, there was a very tragic event that had happened. It was a plane crash. The plane was bringing the whole football team, plus the coaches, some fans, the team doctor, all those people back from a football game at East Carolina University in Greenville. And they took off from Kinston, and as they got really close to Huntington, the plane crashed. And unfortunately, everyone on that plane died from the crash. Well, so that was a major, major event, not only in that university, but for my life too. And there's a lot of information here I have about it, but this is called the Memorial Fountain. This was erected after the plane crash to remember those that were on that plane crash. And every year, the date of the plane crash, the exact time of the plane crash, which was on November the 14th, the water in the fountain stops. They turn it off at the exact time of the plane crash, and it stays off all winter. And then in the spring, they turn the water back on as a way to remember those that passed away in that. So there was a very famous movie recently made by that, and many of you may have seen that, called We Are Marshall. And it was about the story of the rebuilding of the football team after the plane crash. And they did very successfully rebuild the football program in the decade, and I'm sure all of you boys and girls know what a decade is. That's a 10-year period. In the decade of the 1990s, the most winning football program in the United States was not Florida State, was not the University of Miami, was not the Tar Heels. It was Marshall University. They won more football games in the 90s than any other team, and that was coming back from a very devastating event. So I want to tell you a little bit about who the university was named for. I have a picture here of the old main building that was established many, many years ago, but Marshall University was established in 1837 and named after John Marshall, who was a Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. He was the 4th one, and he was a very, very influential Chief Justice in our current understanding of how the Supreme Court and the judiciary branch works. Now, many of you have already studied that the United States has a legislative branch, an executive branch, and a judicial branch of government. And John Marshall was a very influential person in the judiciary. So it is named after him. Interesting thing about John Marshall was his dad was a really good friend of George Washington, our first president. So anyway, the university was named after Mr. John Marshall. And in 1961, which also happens to be the year I was born, it became a university. It started out as a college, a teacher's college. It became a university. And now they have expanded to the point where they even have a beautiful medical school and lots of different things for people to study. So this is the town that I grew up in is where Marshall's located. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about where I grew up and the school that I went to and got my teaching degree from, Marshall University. Tomorrow I'll tell you about how I went back to school after I moved here to North Carolina, and we'll talk about NC State, where I went to school. Have a great day.